Hello and welcome back once again. This is Ben Blau, and we're here for part 2 in our AI NPC tutorial series. Where we last left off, we were just in a basic level on top of a platform. But I put a little environment together for this next part and haven't changed really anything in regard to the scripting that we did for the orc or for Aradel. There is a wireframe around this region where the orc is, and that is nothing more than a navmesh bounds volume, because remember, without a navmesh bounds volume, an AI is not going to be able to locomote or do anything. So notice that the player start is somewhat outside the navmesh bounds volume. So if we were to go into play, we should be able to see the orc doing what it's been scripted to do. So let's press play and see what happens. Yeah, okay, so the orc is just patrolling around, and it will continue to choose different locations and whatnot indefinitely until Aradel walks into this navigable area. Once Aradel is within the sight radius and peripheral vision of the orc, remember, it was scripted to come after us, and if it catches us, it's going to play an attack animation. Right now, it's just using one as a placeholder. Of course, we would use several, and it would have different types of attacks. But this is just showing the basic mechanics. So I'll demonstrate that now. Okay, so the orc is just patrolling. I'm going to go into the nav mesh. Wait for it to notice us. I'm here. Come see me. Okay, so it's coming to see me, and as soon as it arrives, it tries to attack. We already set up Aradel with a sword and the ability to swing that sword. I don't know why that took so long, but now we can see the traces as well, the spear traces. But at the moment, we're not inflicting any damage on the orc. And I want to tell you something that I discovered off camera. Where we left off last time, I asked you to make a health variable for the orc. And at the time, I was debating, should this be a float or should this be an integer? And I wanted to simplify it, so I just chose integer. But I discovered what might be a bug off camera in the sense that no matter how many times I hit the orc, for whatever reason, as I was subtracting health from it, it would always stop at 10, and I could not get it any lower than that. So I don't know why that happened, but I deleted that variable and I made a new health variable using float as the data type and discovered that the problem disappeared. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. To edit that, we're going to find the orc in the world outliner, and you can just click this button, edit BP_orc, and you'll see that I've completely deleted the health variable that was there before. So to add a new one back, under variables, we're going to hit this little plus sign, and as we did before, we'll call it health. And this time I don't want it to be a Boolean. I want it to be, and I don't want it to be an integer either, okay? So don't do what I said in the last video. I think that has a bug. So we're going to use a float as the data type for this. And you can't set a default value, you may recall, until you compile. So I compile first, and we'll set this to 100 as our starting value. Compile and save. Okay, from here, I'd like to show you what I have set up right now in the anim notify state blueprint, which I have docked. So you did see this in the previous video. However, toward the end of the scripting, because I already had a reference to the orc, I thought maybe I would deal damage to it from within this notify blueprint. Except for that I realized that I was using a particular node called a do once node to prevent the spamming of the hits. And it wasn't until I stopped filming for that day that it occurred to me that do once nodes are not compatible with, essentially with functions, which is what this is, as opposed to events. You can't actually use a do once event, in other words, inside of an animation notify state blueprint. We're going to have to implement that elsewhere. Now, to deal damage to the orc, what we're going to do is, even before we get to this return node, let's move the return node over a little bit because we're going to be doing something in between, okay? We're going to be using a node called apply damage. There are other ways of doing this, but this is a built-in system in Unreal, and I think it works just fine for this purpose. Once you get an idea of how this works, that you might find reasons to use it that have nothing to do with damage at all. But in this case, we're going to use it for that purpose. So this is going to go in between the setter for the orc. That is when we create the orc variable after the cast, and before the return node. So we will simply connect the execution wires like so. Now, the base damage can be a fixed value that I could type in, and again, that's called hard coding. So if I typed in the number 25, for instance, it would only take 4 hits, so to speak, to deplete all the health of the orc and essentially kill it. But I don't want it to be that predictable. So I think what I'll do instead for base damage is I'll pull off here and type random float in range. You've seen me do this before for other things like delays and other time mechanics. So the base damage is going to be a float within some range. Let's say anywhere from 15 points of damage to 25 points of damage. Of course, you can decide whatever range you want based on the total number of health points that you gave the orc in the first place and how much damage you want to deal with each overlap. So what we really need in this node is just a reference to the damaged actor, which is easy because we already have it. Now I just got it off that cast. The damaged actor is going to be this orc, and I've got its object reference right here, and I could plug it in like that, or I could just use dvariable and get it, use get orc reference, and use that instead. So in this case, it's equivalent. It doesn't matter which method you use. So just to not have an extra node in our graph, I might as well just do like that because it's the same information. And for the time being, you're not going to need to worry about the remainder of these pins. They obviously do have a reason to exist, but that would be for a different lesson. So we're just going to leave that as it is. Now we want to make this subtract health from our orc. So we're going to go back to the orc, and we are going to search for a node called event any damage, that one. And the damage, this is also a float value. So this is going to be providing that number, which is in the random float in range between 15 and 25 that I specified. Now remember that we have already set up a health float variable inside of this orc. So we can pull that in there and we can get it. We can also pull the health in there and we can set it. So let's set the health right now. And to set this health, we want it to be the current health minus the amount of damage that we are applying. So from the health variable, I will pull off and type subtract, like so. And how much are we going to be subtracting from our health? Excuse me. I'm going to put that above because I don't want the wires to cross. And then we're going to take our damage output from event any damage and connect that to the second input on the subtract node. So with every hit, it's going to take away something between 15 and 25 health points. From there, we can take this output after our subtraction operation and connect that into the health setter. So it will update the health variable on every hit. And we can even see this in action if we use a print string. And when we go into play in a moment, here I'll use our health value, our updated health value as the in string. This just converts it from a float to a string, basically. And you'll be able to watch the health points being deducted in the print string at the upper left corner of the screen. So we're going to compile this and save this, and I'm just going to go right back here to the Aerodel melee damage anim notify state because I want to turn off the debug trace that is showing up around the sword. We already know that those are working, so we don't need to look at them anymore. So I'll click where it says draw debug type, and I'll just change it from for duration to none. Okay, that doesn't change anything about the functionality. That just turns off the visual bubbles that are appearing around the blade of Aerodel's sword when it is being used. All right, so let's see what happens here. I'll run into the nav mesh, and we'll wait for it to see us. There's nothing good over there. Turn around. Ah, okay, great. So it's trying to attack us. Okay, can you see the health being deducted? With each hit. You may notice, some of the time, it will miss. And for certain attacks, it might spam, okay? Especially for the stab. I haven't killed the orc, so that will continue going into negative numbers, but I want to show you her one animation where she stabs him. And these animations are playing randomly, so I'll have to wait for it. That one. Okay, so that, if I made contact really well with the body for that stab, I was rotated perfectly. Let me see if I can do it again. I just have to wait for it to happen. Right there, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think. It registered as 7 hits. And that is a problem. That's called spamming, and we want to be able to control that somehow. So here's how I'm going to control it. Here in the orc, whenever this event takes place, I'm going to precede all of this with a do once node. Do once. And remember, do once nodes do have a reset input execution pin, and we're going to be making use of that a little bit later. But one thing that we'll notice now is that if I compile and save and we do the same experiment, every hit should only register once, even if I stab the orc. It's in there, okay. Excuse me, those have nothing to do with sword fighting. I hit the wrong button. Okay, so look, I stabbed it, and I only got 1 hit. That's because of the do once. That I got nothing because I simply missed. Oh, it's actually a lot simpler than that. The reason that I'm not getting any more damage is because we have not reset the do once. So what I would like to do is take the end of this and just plug it right in. However, that will present a certain problem because I don't want to reset the do once before the animation has had a chance to complete itself. So I will delay the execution flow after this before it goes back to the reset of the do once node. Let's do it the wrong way first, just so I can show you what I'm trying to prevent. Okay, that is still spamming. And the reason that it's still spamming is because it's resetting the do once too frequently. I want it to have to wait before it can subtract health from the orc after it has done so already. So I'm not going to reset the do once yet. So I'll disconnect that. And here I'll just pull off and type delay. Now, if I wanted to be very, very fancy about this, I could find the anim montage that is currently playing and use its duration, but I think I'll just hard code it in this case to maybe something like 2.5 seconds. I'm assuming that that would be enough. And after there, if I reset it, then that's going to correct that issue. So let's try it that way. So I can only hit it now once every 2.5 seconds. The system will not allow me to do anything else. Okay, and you can see again it's going into the negative health there. In practice, it's never going to get that far. So now, before this delay, I want something else to happen. I want to be able to script the demise of this orc. So what we can do is pull this delay over, and from here, from the print string, actually, we don't even really need this print string anymore. Maybe I'll leave it there just so we can monitor the health. I can pull off of here, and we can make a sequence node. All right, so we've got then one is still doing everything that it was doing before, okay? It auto-connected itself as well. But on then one, we are going to set up something that's conditional. And we want to know, when does the orc have to die? Well, the orc has to die logically if its health ever gets to 0 or lower than 0. So we'll pull off, and we know that we're going to need a branch. So I'll start by just getting a branch node. And of course, that has a Boolean execution pin. So here's the way this is going to work. It's going to be just kind of simple arithmetic. I've got a health value. If I drag that into the graph and get it, this is going to be whatever it's been updated to be much earlier on. What I can do is I can pull off of this variable and find out if it's equal to or less than 0. The easiest way to find that operation here is just to search for less equal, and you may recognize the less than and the equal sign. That means less than or equal to, and I could put a number here other than 0 if I had a reason to, but I have no reason to. Once that orc's health is 0 or less than 0, I want it to die. So this returns a Boolean, which will satisfy that condition. And from there, let's print a string. As soon as that becomes true, and this print string is going to be a placeholder for whatever we decide to do for its death, which will probably involve some animation and sound. But for now, I'm just going to type in all caps, I am dead. And I'll do it in some really obvious color, like red. I'll go 1, 0, 0. So that will be red. So I hope you can follow this logic here, all right? This will keep on doing this combat until the health reaches 0 or less. And when that is the case, once that becomes true, then it's going to execute out of this true pin whatever we script afterward. And right now I'm only asking it to print I am dead to the screen. So let's metaphorically kill the orc in this way. Symbolically. 2.5 seconds might have been a little long. Look at the upper left of the screen. I think the next hit's gonna do it. I am dead. Okay? Now, of course, nothing visual is happening on the orc when I printed that string, but that's just because we haven't scripted anything yet. All right, so why don't we script its death? And I want to see if we have any death animations that came with the orc or have been retargeted to the orc. So let's open this up, and we're going to go into, I'm not even going to go into my retargeted folder because I know it came with a few animations of its own. So I'm just going to search for death and start looking at these. Okay, so there it's falling forwards. Death 2 is falling backwards. So I want to make that into an animation montage, and you've done that many times. Hold on, I've got to find the pane so you can see this. All right, we've got the animation sequence highlighted. We're going to right-click, hover over Create, and use this one, Create Anim Montage. And we'll call this AM_orc dies. So now we've got that montage, and I can save it. Just open up the montage itself. It should look no different. Yeah, it's the exact same. And it's not looping either. Okay, so that's good. So we're going to go into the orc's blueprint, and remember the I am dead placeholder was it was meant to represent whatever script we were going to place after this. So let's delete the print string and now replace that with that death animation. So here, if the health is less than or equal to 0, if that's true, then we're going to set up to play an animation montage the way that we always have. And this is going to require actually the character movement component. So let's get that into the graph first. This is the easiest way to do it. We'll pull off of there and search for disable movement, like so. And then we can pull off the character movement component again and search for stop movement immediately. And there's one more node that we're going to need at the very end, which is, oh, actually, we probably aren't going to need it. Under normal circumstances, we would reset the movement mode back to walking, but I guess we shouldn't do that because the orc is dead. Okay, so off of true, we're going to disable movement. We are going to stop movement immediately. And then we're going to play anim montage. That one is fine. And the montage to play is going to be the one that we decided was the one we were going to use. And I made it right here so I can have that highlighted. And in the event graph, I can use this little button to pop it in there. So let's go battle that orc a little bit and wait until it dies, and we should see it fall down. Oh, it saw me right away. I'll draw my blade and get ready. Get in a little closer. Halfway there approximately. Getting closer. I'm still looking at the print strings. Okay, and it got back up again. All right, so we definitely don't want that to happen. So let's make sure that we can control that more. Looping is only one of the factors that can come into play. I'm going to open up the animation montage, and we are going to set our enable auto blend out. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so that's inside the asset details panel inside of the montage. So let's do this one more time with that change. I did save the montage after I changed that setting. Getting there? Okay. I think this should be the one. Yeah, okay. So it is working correctly, and it's not getting back up again. So that's great. Speaking of animations, wouldn't it be nice if every time we hit the orc with the sword, every time a hit is detected, if the orc were to stagger maybe a little bit? And we have what are called hit reactions, and I got some hit reactions which I retargeted onto the orc. So let's look in here from hit reactions, animations, and we'll look for something cool. All right, they start here. So here's one. So let's find it while that's highlighted. And that was Command B again for Browse to Asset. I'll right-click on here and create another anim montage. Create anim montage. And I'll call it AM underscore orc hit underscore 01. Okay. Animation montage orc hit 01. So let's save that. So I think that every time the orc gets hit, there should be something visual and auditory to accompany it. So let's start implementing that aspect of this. I'm going to go back to the orc's blueprint where it's getting hit. And we can put this pretty much anywhere. I guess we don't... I keep on being tempted to delete this print string, but I don't think that's necessary. I'm going to select all the stuff that we've done here and just make some space after the do once. We're going to need actually quite a bit of space now that I think of it. So let's move that way over. Okay, so with the character movement component in the graph, we need three things. Disable movement, stop movement immediately, and this time we are going to set movement mode. We're going to need all three of these. So the first thing that we want to do is to disable the movement. Let's remember what this is feeding, right? This is feeding the setter. So we're going to have to reconnect the execution pin. So once I do that, it's no longer connected, right? So we're going to follow that with the next necessary node. It eventually has to make its way back to where it was going in the first place, like so. And set movement mode is going to be after it plays the animation montage. So the animation montage can be played right here. So we'll search for play anim montage, this one, followed by a delay. We've done this before, the flow control delay. Plug in the execution pin. And remember that play anim montage, what is returned here is the duration, basically, of the animation so that it delays for the appropriate amount of time before the next thing happens. In retrospect, I'm thinking that I might have done this after setting the health, because now that I think of it, I don't want it to delay reducing the health until after the montage plays. So rather than doing all of that, rather than reorganizing everything here, a simple way to make that happen would be to use a sequence before all this. So off of do once, I'll make a sequence. If I had thought this through better, I probably would have just done it all in a more optimal order. So we'll do a then one right after each hit. I want that to definitely set the health. And that's playing the montage. And then after the delay, what I want to do is I want to set the movement mode back to walking. And now we have what is called spaghetti. All right, so let's try to straighten some of this out and make this easier to read as a blueprint. So the movement is not just one. The movement is all health is often on the so if you use it here, if you this down. Okay, so here, stuff. So these are here we do my answer. And so on here. And then now so that's obviously also want to say health here. And here's this. Put on this. I don't know how to do. Okay, that's cool. Now this. This is what I'm change this. There's a there's one place for free connection and then that is so this is so this is now laid out a lot more linearly and chronologically, and hopefully that will help you understand what's going on even better. So we start out by taking damage. Remember, that is from firing it off from the anim notify state. And we take the damage, and we used that do once in order to prevent spamming. But every time we take damage, we are setting the health, and that value that we're giving the health is whatever the health started out as, which was 100 by default, minus the damage amount. So if you recall, the damage amount is a random float in range between 15 points and 25 points. So that is the range of damage. Now, I did notice while we were playing before that sometimes the values would go into the negatives, and that bothered me. And in order to prevent that, I added something off camera that you may not have seen before. It is this node called map range clamped. What I did is I took the health value, and after I performed the subtraction operation, I plugged the output of that not directly into the health, but first into the value of map range clamped. So for the in range A and B and the out range A and B, I just specified the range of health. Okay, so it can be between 0 and 100 and 0 and 100. It can't be above 100. It can't be below 100. And that is going to clamp it so that it's not going to do that anymore. And we'll see that. I'll show you that once we go back out into play mode. Then we take the output of that, and that can feed our health setter. So after that, I basically wanted to be able to reset our ability to continue to strike the enemy and deal further damage. And I shortened this duration from 2.5 seconds to 2 seconds. You can play with that value until you find what works best for you and the specific animations that you're using. In between the health setter and the delay, I have a sequence node. So it can do all of that separately, but on then 1, we're starting that off with the print string, which actually could be there or not. That is just to display the current health in the upper left corner of the screen. And when it gets hit, I want to disable the movement, stop movement immediately from the character movement component so that I can play that hit montage that we chose and made. So every time the orc gets hit with a sword, it has to play this animation montage. Following that, there's a simple delay, and the duration of that delay is the duration of whichever montage is playing. So we wait for that delay to complete before we go into yet another sequence node. Now, if we look at then 1, we are setting the movement mode back to walking, and the target is the same character movement component, this one, that already exists in our component panel. I'm just multiple dipping on it because this node needed that, this node needed that as a target, and this did as well. I suppose I could have put one of these character movement things next to each one and just connected them, but that's more nodes. Okay, so this doesn't bother me at all, and I think it's fine. And this is so that it can continue fighting and walking around in case it has not depleted its health yet. But then on then 1, I have another branch. And that is where we are taking care of the death mechanic. So the condition for this branch is whether the health value is ever less than or equal to 0. And you will see now it will not be able to go into the negatives because we prevented that possibility with the map ranged clamp node. I did notice that some of the time, once this condition became true and we disabled the movement so that it could play the animontage for the death, some of the time that might have taken place in the middle of a montage it was already playing. So what we might need to do probably here is to stop this montage. We can stop a montage in the same way that we can play one. So if I can stop that montage, if it turns out that that's happening often enough to be a problem, we'll make sure that we stop that montage so that it goes right into the death montage. And this does not have to be reset, of course, because after all, it's dead. So let's compile and save. And now we'll go and play. And hopefully this will now all work. No spamming if we're looking at the health. Every connection, we get that hit montage. But I can only deal damage every 2 seconds in this case, so some of the time it's not going to do anything. Okay, now, see, that was mid-montage. Its health is 0. And I had to wait for that the previous montage to finish before the thing just died. And I would rather have it just go right into its death. So here's my hypothesis. I think that if we stop the other montage right at that point where the health reaches 0, then it will go immediately. It will transition, I beg your pardon, immediately into the death montage. So let's see if we can make that happen. So stop montage, stop anim montage. That sounds good. And the one that I want to stop is this one, so I have to find it. And now that I've highlighted it, I should be able to pop it in right here. And the target is going to be the self, and the anim montage we've already populated. So after this branch, just going to make a little room. And we're just going to put this in line with it so that that montage has to stop, and then it will go immediately, hopefully, into our death montage. If that does not work, then I will troubleshoot it further off camera, and I will let you know in class. But for now, I think this should take care of it. So let's compile and save and try that once more. Wanted to get its attention. Not close enough. Okay, this should be the final hit. Okay, so we still have that problem, just despite placing that montage stop right here. So we might need to do something earlier that we are checking, again, if the health is less than or equal to 0 to allow it to play this montage at all. So let's see if we can make it happen there. Or actually, maybe before all of this setup. I'm going to make a new variable, and that's going to be called isDead. And that will be a Boolean. See if we can control it this way. So we'll compile, and we will save. Okay? And it is not dead, excuse me. I want that to be false by default. So what we're going to do is here is a branch And the condition to allow it to even go into that state is going to be whether or not it's dead. I'm a little bit concerned about having that sequence here, okay? But we'll see if it affects it. So is dead is going to be no, not dead here. And then once the health is less than or equal to 0, we have our branch. Let's take all this stuff. Oops, beg your pardon. We may not need that stop montage node after all, but I'm gonna leave it there for the time being. And the branch is going to be less than equal to 0, and then we are going to get is dead and use a setter. Set is dead to true. So that before going into this branch, set is dead, like that, okay? And that's going to go, we may not actually need that branch at all, so let's get rid of that one. Oh, excuse me, we do need that branch. I need that back. So after we've set is dead, and we can do that, we could connect this right here, okay? But I think it's a little bit maybe more, it's possibly more elegant. Nah, I think we'll just do it right from the less equal node like that. Okay, so if it's dead, then it can only do this. Stop whatever montage it's playing, disable the movement, and play the death montage with no reset for the do once. And I did need to put a do once here because I found that for whatever reason, this would trigger and then like randomly trigger again. So it would sort of twitch while it was on the ground, and I didn't like that. So the do once took care of that. Live troubleshooting. I'm here. Yeah. Okay, so that placement of the Boolean did break it. And yeah, that is what I was hoping would not be the case. Maybe we need that to be this branch. Should be up there. Okay, remember, is dead is false, excuse me, so it's not dead yet. That's how these work, by the way. That can be a little confusing. If the status of this is false, then the only execution pulse is going to come out of whatever this state is. So I have to use the false output execution pin. I understand semantically it's true that it's false, but nevertheless, that's not how the node works. You get your execution pulse out of the state of the variable, the Boolean variable that is providing the condition. So it's not dead, right? That's false. And it's setting the health, and then that's resetting. Okay, so far so good. Now we've got all this happening. We've got our print string. And let's see if I can find another good opportunity to use is dead before here. Okay, so let's see that. Yeah, that is not interfering with this sequence because it's not in line with that sequence. Okay, now is dead is true. Yeah, why don't I just do this instead? And that's the condition, and that is the information that the setter needs. So now it is dead, so I can use the true output. This, whether or not this is still necessary, I'm not sure, but I definitely needed to play the death montage right away. And I'm going to try yet again because I think this is a solvable problem. That was the first successful hit. There's another one. There's another one. There's another one. We're getting close. Okay, maybe this next shot will do it. Ah, success! We eliminated that mid-montage problem. Okay, so what's missing now are all of the impact sounds, but as this is a game audio course, I think that you're going to know how to implement them. There should be sounds of like the sword striking the orc. Maybe we can even spawn some blood particle systems or something like that with every location, because it's really a hit result. If we go into the anim notify state, where the hit took place, you can get the exact specific impact point of that. And that's a location vector. So if you have like a blood spatter particle effect, you can spawn it exactly where that hit took place. And you could even do it right in here, I'm quite sure. So that would be a cool addition. And again, with the hits, that's what I would use to coordinate playing the sounds. So it might even be worth, because we've got the orc object reference here, and if I ever need its location, all right, so I can get my orc reference, get actor location, right? I can always do that after I have a solid reference. And then from there, I can implement play sound at location every time, right from here. And in fact, I think maybe I'll just demonstrate that to show it to you. Apply damage, and before the return node, because this is not latent, nothing here is latent, so this all should be compatible in this graph. Play sound at location. And I'll use some placeholder sounds for this. We don't have a sound yet, but let's go out here and make something. Okay, so let's choose, well, let me just search. I know I imported some sounds. And I'll use my filter for this. Audio, sound wave. So we've got that's me dropping my keys onto a piece of metal. Nespresso, I use that, believe it or not, for putting the sword away. That's what, it's just me with the Nespresso on my desk. I had the lid open and I closed it, recorded it several times. There's a paper cutter in the office. Okay, there's all kinds of stuff that I used. This is my pots and pans that I brought from home. And then we get into body movements. I think I'm going to start with the keys because they sound like little impacts. And we'll right-click, and we are going to create a single sound cue from that. And I'm going to call this sword impacts _ cue. And because I'm filtering here, let's go to audio and include sound cues as well. So where are you? I think it's right there. Okay, so let's dock that. Open it first. Let's dock that. Okay, and it's already randomizing those, which is good. I think they should sound deeper. So I think what we'll do is after this random, we'll use a modulator. And we'll just lower the pitch. So let's say something like 0.75 to 0.85. And we'll see how that sounds. That sounds a little bit better. Okay. Now I think we can bring some other elements into this. So these are sort of like the how I did this one is I took my a large pan lid and then I hit it with something and then I sort of wiggled it in front of the mic. And it produced that effect. I don't think I want number 6 or 8. So let's get just the ones we want for the clashing sounds. Not that one. Bring those in. Randomize them as well. And they probably will need a modulator too. But now that we have 2 streams, we're going to need a mixer. So let's take the output of this modulator and the output of this modulator before we get to our final destination. Let's see if this sounds anything like sword hits. Okay, I think this particular one I'm not very fond of, so I'm gonna see if I can, I can delete that input, good. Yeah, that one, I don't like that one either. We'll play this node right here. One of these sounds like a double. Play node. Yeah, I don't know what I'm noticing doubling up sometimes. Okay, so let's see if these need to be dropped in pitch. 0.75 to 0.85. I don't think so much. That was, I think, better at its defaults. And I think I want the key impacts to be louder. So let's take index 1 and make that louder. See, that happens sometimes. Okay, so it's when this one and this one play together. So keys 2 and clash 7. I think those might be the problems. Let's see. Delete these inputs. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And I think the whole darn thing needs to be louder. So we're going to go volume 2. And maybe a little bit lower in pitch. Let's try 0.95 globally. Yeah, that one needs a little bit more loudness. And it seems like this one also does. So we'll go into the last input on there. Okay, so this is good enough for like a temporary placeholder sound effect. And let's remember it's called Sword Impacts Cue. So we'll save that. And let's go back into the anim notify state and just pop it in there. Okay, so that should happen with every hit. Let's see, there's an error. And I see the world context object is what it's asking for, and that is the mesh. This should compile. Good. And I sure hope this works. Let's see. I can hear them. But only when it... oh, that one's spammed. Okay, so we can prevent that as well. We can override the concurrency in the sound cue. So let's do that and limit it to one voice. So we can only get one at a time. And the retrigger time, that's going to be important. So let's just say that it cannot retrigger the sound for 2 seconds. That should control it. Let's try that again. It's not controlling it the way I expected. Okay, so there's an easier way to do this, and it's a similar thing that I ran into when I was trying to use a do once node up here, because this is spamming, and I'm tempted to use a do once, but it's incompatible with the anim notify state. So why don't we do this instead? We're going to delete these, get this out of the picture, and we'll do this on the receiving end. Okay, so we'll delete all that, and in the orc, every time it gets hit, we'll do it there with a do once. Okay, so we already have a do once, and we might as well put it here. Play sound at location. I think we may still have it selected in the content browser, so I should be able to just pop it in there. Good. And I think it's good enough to just use, we could either use Aridel's location or this actor's location. I think that is fine. So I'm just going to use get actor location for ourself, in other words, the orc. So get actor location. And plug that in there. And the sound is already populated. All right, that's not going to disrupt anything, I don't think. I'm looking this over carefully because I don't want to have to eat crow after I tell you something is true. Okay, this is not going to work. This is not going to work, and you know why? Because it is not true that it's dead at this point. So that was actually not a good place to put it. It's going to have to be somewhere in this execution path. I hope some of you caught that as I was making that mistake. And if you did, that's an excellent sign. because anybody can make mistakes like this. You know, once you get mentally fatigued after scripting for a while, sometimes your brain gets mixed up. So I think that it is going to need to be here in this execution chain. And this branch is still valid, still needed for all of that. And I've got more housekeeping to do in this blueprint. We'll straighten it out some other time. All right, let's see if that's now controlled. Oh, and I want the sound to be still louder, so I'm going to multiply it again here on the play sound at location so that we can really hear those strikes. Okay, so that's working pretty well. What if we did some vocalizations for the orc? Let's reset my filters, and I'm gonna cheat. Okay, I'm not gonna really make anything from scratch, and nor will I make any of you stand in front of a microphone and go But remember, we've got that human vocalizations pack in here someplace. And if I pitch those things down quite a bit, then they may be appropriate. So let's see. Effort. Okay. See, where does the pain start? Pain 1. Okay, so that one was pretty good. So, like that one and that one. That's fine. Hit. That one will be funny. Might as well. Okay, that should be enough. I'll right-click and I'll make a single cue out of all of those. And I'll call it orc pain reactions _Q. And we'll edit that. So those are going to be all randomized. And really, mainly what I'll do is I'm just going to lower the pitch globally, right? So the pitch, let's lower that to 0.6 and see what it sounds like. 0.6. And we can make it sound a little weirder as well. If you want, we can duplicate these and follow them with a modulator of their own and tune them a little higher. So let's go to maybe 1.1 to 1.25. And then we'll mix those together. Let's disconnect that for a second. I'll highlight these together, bring in a mixer, and then put that in the final output. Let's see what that sounds like. Just a little weirder. Okay, so in the mixer, though, I think I would like to favor the first group. Okay. We still need some squishy sounds for when it gets hit, but let's have it make this sound with every hit as well. So we'll go back into BP_orc, and right at the same time that this happens would be a fine time to do that. Play sound location again. I think I still have it highlighted. Pop it in there. And we can use the same location that we used before. Yes, this is getting messy again, but remember, we can always straighten things out later. And let's see if they're loud enough. Yeah. I need to put some sphere traces on her knee and on her feet for those kicks. That enhances it a lot. Okay, you're dead. Okay, so I think that brings this tutorial finally to a close. So I'm going to just straighten out that blueprint, and I'll do an edit, and you'll see what it looks like at the end. I'll let you have a good look at it. Okay. Okay, so one final look at that event graph. I think that this is readable by a human being, so we'll review it one more time. Event any damage, we're receiving that from the anim notify blueprint. From apply damage, it's being sent to the orc. That's why we got a reference to the orc with this cast in the anim notify blueprint itself. So it starts off here at event any damage. And the damage amount is, once again, random according to this specification right here, random floating range for base damage in the apply damage node. Okay, so therefore, in our first execution, we have a do once node to prevent spamming. And it's checking if it's dead. And if it's not dead, only then can this event subtract health from the orc. All right, it's got to be alive to subtract health from it. And how much is it subtracting? It's subtracting the damage amount, right? So whatever you decide to put in here, that's going to be the damage amount for every strike. So it is adjusting the health there, and I didn't want it to go into the negatives, which it was seeming to do, so I clamped it from 0 to 100 and used the output of that to set the health at that point. So from there, I left the print string up just so that we can watch the health go down. If you're interested, I can show you how to make a health bar. Technically, that's not audio related, but it can be a visual enhancement and it can be helpful. So, but for now, it's just printing a string. And every time a hit takes place, we get the sword clash and a pain noise made by the orc at the same time. So then we've got a sequence, and the first then 0 is simply so that we can reset the do once so that we can continue attacking the orc for as long as it's still alive. Remember, there is a is dead check right there. So on then 1, we are disabling the movement, stopping it, and this is for the purpose of playing the hit reaction. And right now it's just only one hit reaction, but it could be a whole bunch of different ones, and I think that would be even cooler. Disable movement, stop movement immediately, and set movement mode all come off of the character movement component. So that's important to remember. That has to be feeding the target pin on all 3 of those nodes. The play anim montage node's target is just the character, and we are in the orc's blueprint, so we don't have to attach anything to that. I specified the hit montage right there. So every time it gets hit, it plays that montage. It delays for the amount of time that that montage takes, and then is immediately, after the delay expires, immediately is set back into walking mode. But we also want to monitor when the health reaches 0 or less, okay? Less than or equal to 0. So on then 1, we are checking. If the health is less than or equal to 0, then we are setting our isDead Boolean to true, and that's why I'm using the true output of the branch, and I connected that Boolean right there. Remember, I could have done this. Right? That would have been equivalent, but it's right there, so I might as well just plug it in. Stop and montage, and hopefully this is worth doing. I'm not sure if it's actually working. I'm not positive about this one yet, but we'll see. But I wanted to interrupt its montage so that it can immediately play the death montage, even if it's in the middle of a hit reaction. So we'll have to see about that. Still unsure. But again, because we're playing a montage, we had to get the character movement component again and do the same thing that we usually do. Disable movement, stop movement immediately. And to prevent this from spamming, I did a do once without a reset. So it plays the death montage that never gets reset, and it just lays there dead. And that's that. So I thank you once again for sticking with me through this long tutorial, and I'll just sort of slowly pan across this so you can see what it is. Hope nothing is ambiguous. I hope you understand why we did each thing that we did. And I'm also glad that things went wrong, okay? Because it's worth it. Real-time troubleshooting is something that you need to be able to do yourselves and not have it bother you, because that affects every programmer. You try something, you think it's going to work, and when it doesn't, you scratch your head and you say, I wonder what caused that. But your frame of reference hopefully is growing, so you can start to think about things that probably are the reason. And that will speed up your troubleshooting so you can get it done in a practical amount of time. So there's a whole lot of script going on here, and I hope you enjoyed this episode once again. So I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.